we've been talking about the Bernie blackout. Well, the Bernie blackout continues. We're going to dive into this. Boom, here we go. Bernie Sanders tops new California poll, but you wouldn't have known it by reading this LA Times headline. In the latest Bernie blackout example, Sanders' deputy campaign manager notes it took the major newspaper 3 paragraphs to mention who is leading. A new poll released Thursday found that Bernie Sanders is leading the 2020 Democratic presidential field in California, my home state, or well, not my home state, the state I live in now. It's not where I'm from. And by the way, more news in California. The sun came back, guys. The sun is back. I know you were all worried, especially those of you who live in places that actually has a winter. I know you're like, it's been cloudy for a few days. Ron's having to wear a sweater. We've entered the Mr. Rogers portion of the show, the few months out of the year where Ron has to wear a sweater. Well, sun's back. Here I am. And guys, Lucy also chilling. Lucy is in the other room now. She's kind of back to herself. She's not chilling in the bedroom. When she was doing that, I, of course, got concerned because I always look for any excuse to get concerned about. Not any excuse, but you know what I mean. The smallest thing, I'll be concerned about my cat. Does she poop at a different time? I'm concerned now. But I think it was just the weather, man. The clouds were kind of bumming her out a little bit. She was thrown off. Plus, I've been traveling a lot. That's thrown her off. But now she's kind of back to her usual chilling situation during the show. She might come over later. We'll see. But anyway, new poll reveals Bernie's ahead. Bernie's winning. So here's the initial headline from the newspaper. Warren and Biden lose ground in California's shifting 2020 Democratic race. That was the initial headline. Then they changed it to Warren and Biden lose ground. Sanders moves ahead in California's shifting 2020 Democratic race. So the poll conducted for the Times by the UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies found that Sanders is leading the California presidential primary race at 24%, has gained 5% since September. Warren is in second place at 22%. Biden is in third at 14%. He's been down 6% since September. Why is he down by so much? I know, because he's been talking in public. That's why. And then Pete Buttigieg is at 12%. So that's the headline. And it took the LA Times 3 paragraphs to mention who is leading, where they finally mentioned that they're leading. So they had to change the headline. And here we can take a look at what they had to change it to. Warren and Biden lose ground. Sanders moves ahead in California's shifting 2020 Democratic race. Originally, it was just Warren and Biden lose ground. That was it. They didn't have this part. But so many people thought it was ridiculous that they're not saying who's winning the poll. CNN did something similar, and we covered this on the we covered it on the show. Bernie Sanders was winning a poll. CNN literally had about 4 or 5 headlines around the poll. None of them even mentioned Bernie Sanders. One of them said Pete Buttigieg is in 4th, but a strong 4th. And if he is somehow the nominee and he loses to Trump, which Pete Buttigieg would lose to Trump, don't worry, guys. It'd be a strong loss. And as the planet's collapsing and we're all going underwater, we can say, well, at least Pete Buttigieg had a strong loss. We can all hold our heads high. And Nancy Pelosi made a nice speech about how she doesn't hate people. She just reauthorized the Patriot Act for President Trump, but she doesn't hate people. Isn't that great? So here's the LA Times thing, and this is what happened. Now, here's something interesting in the article. The Democratic presidential contest in California remains extremely fluid, but not enough to provide an opening for Michael Bloomberg, because I know we were all concerned. We were all worried. We were like, is there going to be enough for Michael Bloomberg? Billionaires need to have a voice in this, guys. I mean, come on. Those poor, underrepresented billionaires. So he entered the race weeks ago and was banking on winning big, blah, 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 blah. The survey found that both Senator Warren in Massachusetts and former Vice President Joe Biden have lost ground. The erosion has benefited Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who narrowly tops the primary field. So, yeah, in the 3rd paragraph, it still takes until the 3rd paragraph where they mention that Bernie Sanders is winning the poll. That's still the case. But they did add this part to the headline because all they had mentioned prior was that Bernie Sanders has lost ground. What I find interesting about the article, too, is that they kind of credit Bernie's surge in the poll to Michael Bloomberg entering. They're saying that Michael Bloomberg's eroding the field, which, by the way, first of all, they're not really giving Bernie credit that he deserves, A, but also they're kind of subtly, unintentionally admitting that, you know, who's looking out for the rich? Warren and Biden. You know who isn't? Bernie Sanders. That's what they're saying. If they're saying that Biden and Warren are closer to Bloomberg than Bernie Sanders, which is true, by the way, which is absolutely true, they're kind of just admitting that it's like, these are the people who will look out for the donors. This guy won't. So when a billionaire enters, these people decline a little bit and this guy surges. That's what the article is unintentionally admitting. Interesting. There's more evidence of that Bernie blackout. And that was shared by Edwin. Edwin, thank you very much for sharing that.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make